Hey guys, welcome back. Yes, today gonna have another trading recap as per the title, and we're gonna go through the two losses I incurred on the 11th of April. One was a bit discretionary, just a higher time frame test that I'm doing, and the other one was actually with plan on the lower time frame. However, was a pullback. So we'll go through those. We'll go through my analysis, my narrative, and my strategy. And yes, I'm wearing a cap because I have got terrible hair at the moment. So join me on the charts and let's go through those. So guys, let's start off here on the 4 hour. Now, bear in mind the 4 hour might be showing a bit more than it did at the time when I entered. But we'll give you the breakdown and show you how it looked, right? So we have our previous daily high here, previous daily low here. So in the previous day on Monday, we had rejected this 4 hour fair value gap, which was pretty much with trend, right? You can see the higher highs and higher lows overall in the trend. We have our 4 hour leg here, and this was in discount and rejected. So in the morning, I looked at this and saw this big, massive bearish impulse, which hadn't broken the 4 hour structure, but it had broken, an internal structure, and this was a good order block, clearly with some sell side potential behind it. So I thought, okay, this could hold because this has pulled back what looks corrective, right? It will look better on the lower time frames, but as you can see here, we've got one 4 hour candle and 5 4 hour candles during the pullback, right? So this is what the 4 hour looked like. And I thought we've got potential to the downside, even though I know my narrative for the 4 hour and the daily is that we've got a bullish overall trend, but we had a previous day which closed out bearish, so it may continue for a further pullback into the order block here or further into the fair value gap. So let's go down to the 1 hour, because this is the time frame I was entering from. So trade 1, trade 2, yeah? So on the hourly now, we've pretty much had an hourly break of structure, right? You can see here we've taken out these lows. We've got this hourly order block here, which is also the 4 hour order block, which has caused a shift in structure on the hourly, and you can see how many hours it took to pull back. And I've got my sell side liquidity trend line here that you can see is what I'm targeting for the sell side. I'm just thinking we could pull back, take this low and then continue upwards with the trend if it's going to go that way. So I have my 1 hour fair value gap, which is within the 4 hour order block. So it looks like a high probability order block. It looks like a good area to short from, though it is, of course, against trend. Now, just for full transparency, this is still a discretionary trade for me in a sense, because though the pattern I'm familiar with, I don't usually execute this on a higher time frame. So I did go into this with half risk. So I was already sort of hedging it anyway, right? Because I'm just kind of testing it out. So just disclosure there. Right, so we pulled back correctively. We have our fair value gap where I've set my limit order at 50%, and I've put my stop loss in a sensible place well above the high, because if we take out this high, obviously I was wrong, and it's above the previous daily high, so the liquidity may be swept higher up here, and I'm just targeting this sell side trend line. Let me quickly briefly go to the 15-minute. You can see the trend line's even clearer now, right? We've even got a 15-minute order block within there. So that's just to show you how the lower time frames was also shaping up. But the execution time frame was the hourly. So that's why the stop is so big, and you can see it here. So I'm going to take you over to DXY now. For trade 1, let's start here on the 4 hour. So as you can see, again, just like EU, we've got this 4 hour bearish leg, right? We've pulled back up into this fair value gap. and rejected it after this massive impulse, leaving behind a 4-hour order block and pulled back in like a corrective way, right? So I've got a note here, if this upholds, this is a weak high, but obviously at the moment, if it doesn't, this is a weak low, right? So we had our previous day low here, previous day high up here. Fucking idiot. So we've got our previous day high, previous day low, and order block, and we've got our corrective pullback from this fair value gap on the 4-hour, right? So same as EU, we'll go down to the hourly. So at the point where I entered the trade, you can see, of course, we've got this buy side liquidity line here. We've got our hourly fair value gap, hourly order blocks, which is the same as what's in EU. We have our fair value gap here. Of course, on EU, we were at the 50% mark of the fair value gap, and on DXY we weren't. So I expected we could possibly foresee some drawdown. However, on EU, my stop loss, it being a high time frame move, is, you know, way away, so I could hold the stop, I could hold the pullback, which was fine. So where I got in the entry, you can see the 15 minutes tapped into it and has had a little bullish bounce, right? But anyway, that trade is just on the back burner. It's a bit experimental and it's going to take time to develop unless, you know, it really goes in my way or goes against me. So I was fine with that. So now we're back. We've gone through the DXY. Let's just, you know, play out this trade. So you can see at this point, I was taken out a few hours later, very strong on the hourly, very strong on the 4-hour. You can see here that, you know, the 4-hour closed out with a lot of momentum when it entered into my trade, even though it looked like it might decelerate at the time. So it looks like trend's going to continue, buy side liquidity above here, and it's a weak high scenario at this point, right? So yeah, we got taken out, went through the 1-hour fair value gap, completely blew through this 4-hour order block and took out the previous daily high and swept some liquidity above here. So we lost that trade. So in hindsight, possibly could have been more patient, not set that order so early with all that momentum against me and being counter trend. But the pattern looked good. I'm still experimenting with that higher time frame entry. But I'm not unhappy with the trade. I wasn't beating myself up about it. So let's move on to trade 2, which I did take on the lower time frames. So I'll go down to the 15 minute and we can play this forward. So here in the build up to trade 2, now you'd think, why are you again going against the trend and the bias? I was also thinking that in a sense. If it had come down here, I was looking for longs, so don't worry. But what happened was, now we had taken out so much buy side liquidity that we had taken out these previous highs here, which was the previous daily highs, which, as we know, is a major buy side liquidity point. We had taken out some previous highs from the day before that here. We had spiked through it, swept, and we had closed down very bearish. Let's go up to the hourly. The hourly close is huge. So the hourly close is a real big bearish engulfing, right? So back onto the 15. We're still building trendline liquidity below. We're still doing that. We've broken down here and closed below on the 15 minute. Clearly, for me, I use this as a 15-minute low because it broke the previous high here. So we've got a 15-minute low now, and for me, for a break of structure, for me to trade counter trend, it needs to at least break on the 15-minute, right? This is only a temporary trade. I'm not targeting past this major POI here, which would be a with trend POI. So that's why I've targeted just above it here for a 2-to-1. So this is how it shaped up. It left behind this spike. We had got the 15-minute breaker structure, so I can go down to the 5 minute for entry. So you can see we left inducement here, which is buy side liquidity beneath my order block, which would sponsor the move down, right? So take out stops here or whatever may be here. We've got this breaker structure and we're building a kind of corrective pullback, not in the best way, but we're leaving loads of buy side inducement and liquidity for this move. Now, I put my stop comfortably above this order block, as I believe this order block was mitigated, and on the 5 minute, this is what caused that break. So that's why my stop's there, and we're beginning to pull back now. So I'll play this forward again. So now it's to do with the buy side liquidity, just to go over, and we've swept loads of it, and we've still got a trend line here, and I believe it's a high probability order block, considering we've taken previous daily high and some previous days buy side liquidity, right? So again, just targeting for this trend line here, this bit here where it's left that sell side liquidity to go for. And I'll show you DXY now as well, why I believe DXY was on side. So trade 2 now was around here. As you can see, we've built even more buy side liquidity, right? On EU, we had taken out the previous daily high already, some previous daily highs for more buy side liquidity, and you know we'd swept a lot of buy side liquidity, right? So here on DXY now, we are still within this 4-hour order block, which is holding. We've got the divergence of the PDL, the previous daily low, not being swept, right? And we've got a great buy side liquidity target. We're deeper into the discount on the hourly. We're well within, you know, we filled the hourly imbalance, and we've got this order block still intact, and we had a 1 hour, you know, bullish rejection. Now we're just having a pullback. So that to me was, you know, okay, it's on side. DXY looks like it could be on side, right? It was just another pro with the trade. I think the 4-hour was looking to close bullish. I think it was nearly closing. However, as we can see here now, we had a really big bearish previous 4-hour, which is a con to keep in mind, but I don't think I concentrated on that much. So it's something else for me to reflect on. But yeah, it looks like this was possibly holding, making this a weak high if it does. Back to EU now. So now we're back from checking the DXY. DXY had obviously gone further into that order block. It looked much better. We've seen that impulsive move out. So now I'll let this trade play out. Started off well, as you can see. Looked like we was onto a winner here. I was monitoring it on the 5 minute. You see that massive impulse that was there for a minute and then disappeared. Again, pulled down, nearly made it to the 1% point where I'd have gone break even. And then it started to pull back and go with trend again. However, I wasn't too negative as it was building sell side liquidity again. It wasn't coming up very impulsively. It was still leaving these steps. So I still had sell side liquidity to aim for, and it gave me points where I thought, oh, okay, we're back in, you know, we've just gone deeper into the order block on the 15 minute, you know, we're just going deeper into the 15 minute order block. I got a safe stop, but the 15 minute closes were definitely against me. Come back down, and as you can see, I get stopped out here. So lost that second trade. I thought, okay, we're just against trend, right? It's just not going well. Trading counter trend today. Ultimately, I think for this loss, this second loss especially, but both, it's something I know, but I didn't exercise here. We all make mistakes, right? I didn't allow the price action to show its trend or trend change if it was going to change, right? With the first one, I'm trying to catch it with the riskier entry. You know, on a higher time frame, it looked like the same shape, but you know, I didn't really wait for like a lower time frame confirmation or anything like that, like a 15-minute breaker structure to the downside that could have helped with, you know, an entry. But especially for the second one, again, it's like trying to capture a falling knife, right? I'm assuming, even though I did wait for the 15-minute breaker structure, I'm assuming, you know, that where the trend's gonna continue my way here, right? Because we've come up into a high time frame POI, which was a 1 hour fair value gap, and we've swept so much buy side liquidity. But sometimes these sweeps don't change the direction. They may on a really small level, but not enough to get, you know, what I'm aiming for. So, you know, let the trend show you the way it's going. Allow price to develop, right? And I know this. This is why I use the 15-minute breaks of structure on the pullbacks, just to allow it to do so. But I probably could have allowed it, you know, to play out and confirm and actually go with a trend. Let a day pass and just go with the trend, right? So yeah, that's that for the cons there. But I believed we had taken enough buy side liquidity. We had our sweep. I waited for a 15-minute breaker structure. We had inducement. We had a decent pullback. There was no news due. DXY looked on side with all of the buy side liquidity it built up, and was also holding the order block there. There was some SMC divergence because we had taken the previous daily high on EU and we didn't take the previous daily low on DXY. So all of those things together, it was a good trade. It just didn't work out. So I'm not unhappy with the loss. One other con I may have is that I did want to cover this high. Usually I'd put a few pips above it, but I didn't want to extend my TP into this 15-minute zone here where price could reverse. So I'll skip forward again and show you what happened after my stop was taken. Price actually did go my way and almost all the way to TP actually. So I would have had a partial and possibly a break even or closed it manually later in that day. So it was unfortunate. I would have liked my stop to have been, you know, somewhere up here. Spread may have taken me out. I usually go above the high by 2-3 pips. So I may have got caught by spread, even if not. So let's say it was here. I may have been caught by spread either way. But yeah, it ended up playing out eventually. Not long term. It didn't pull down very bearishly. But we move. I'm not unhappy with these trades, but I hope you can learn something. Obviously, I go for my own ASR and I learn from these trades, and I'll be doing that every week. And if you gained any value from this and you're still here, then thank you. And please leave a like and subscribe. See you soon.